Hey guys, welcome back to another video in the series. I'm turning 30. My name is Mitch, and this is a series where I talk about my life. Whether that's things that happened in the past, things that are happening at present, or things that will happen in the future. Or maybe even a mixture of all three. And as you can see today, I'm going to talk about schooling. A lot of my life, I thought that I didn't really like school, and to some extent, that's still true. But I think it's more of a how people teach me rather than just all of school is bad. I need a very specific teaching style for me to want to be an environment where I'm being taught, where I'm learning and things like that. I also never really figured out how to study when I was younger, and that kind of continued up to when I was a teenager. I never really had to study, never really learned how, and so when I got into college, studying was hard. Even if I wanted to study something, I never really knew how or what methods were effective or how I could really remember things just because I wasn't very good at it. When I was a kid, I was one of those classic kids that I feel like I see a ton of videos on, and I don't know if that's just because of algorithms and whatnot, but I was considered a gifted kid when I was younger. And I always thought that I was really smart because I didn't ever have to study and I would still get good grades in class. I would be able to pass homework assignments, I was able to pass tests, and I never did any studying. I just knew the material because we learned it in class, and I would memorize it in class, and I just had it there in my mind. Now, I didn't get perfect scores. I wasn't like a 4.0 student, all A's, anything like that. I definitely was just passing, not like passing with flying colors, but still passing nonetheless, and that's all that really mattered, at least to me. And I think that's part of the reason that I wasn't very good at studying in general. If we break it down year by year, in elementary school, I actually went to 3 different elementary schools. In first grade, I went to a private school that was kind of, I don't want to say higher level, but like, it was a private school, and so you're supposed to, I think it's supposed to have a higher level of quality than just your average public school. But I was taken out of that private school because I believe it cost too much money for my parents, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not exactly sure on the reason, but I think that's what it was, if I remember correctly. It was obviously a long time ago. In second grade, I went to a public school, and I believe it was a public school that had first grade through ninth grade, which is all of elementary school and all of middle school. And I went there with my sister, and I did 1 year in this public school, and I far exceeded like everybody in my class, and I was passing with flying colors, and so I was put into another school in third grade. At least that's the reason that I remember. I could be totally off base, but we didn't move or anything like that. We were in the same house. I just got placed at another school when I went to third grade. And in third grade, going along with what I mentioned earlier, being a gifted kid, because I was really killing it in public school so much, I was placed into an advanced learning program called ALPS. Now, this advanced learning program essentially was me just learning 1 grade up from what you were actually in. So in third grade, you would learn fourth grade things. In fourth grade, you would learn fifth grade things, and so on and so forth for every grade in elementary school. And I believe they also had this program in a specific middle school in Utah as well, but I did not attend that one. So going into this advanced learning program in third grade at a new school, I essentially just skipped third grade. I never learned any third grade content and just skipped a total year of education and things that people learn in the third grade. I never had to learn it, and I essentially started learning fourth grade things in the third grade. And going into this advanced learning program, again, I was never like straight A's killing it, but I was passing everything. I passed the third grade and I passed the fourth grade. However, in the fourth grade, I really had a big problem or a lot of fights with the teacher that I had when I was in the fourth grade. It's been so long and I can't really remember what the fights were about, but I remember me and her didn't get along. My parents also didn't like her, and I just had like a bad experience in the class in general. And even like growing up, and I remember for a few years after that, my parents would constantly reference how this specific teacher really like messed up my trajectory and like how I tried things in education in general going forward. Now, I don't really remember a specific moment or why that was, so I can't say that's necessarily true unless my parents want to go into more detail and give me more detail or list it down in the comments. But that's what I remember in that situation. I do remember not liking her and always fighting with her, but I'm not sure exactly what the problem was and why we had so many issues and why my parents also had issues with her. Now we go on to the 5th grade, and I'm still in this advanced learning program. So at this point, I skipped third, I learned 4th grade, and then 5th grade, and then 6th grade in the 5th grade. So I'm learning 6th grade things in the 5th grade, advanced everything, science, math, English, all that stuff. While I'm in this 5th grade class learning 6th grade material, and kind of going along with what I mentioned about my 4th grade teacher, like, really affecting me, I eventually needed to get a tutor in English. In English or language arts class, I really started to struggle, and I had to get a tutor in my neighborhood to help me understand English concepts better. And it wasn't just English that I was struggling in. I started to struggle in other subjects as the year went on as well. I don't know if it was a motivation issue because of my fourth grade teacher, what exactly it was, but I remember my grades were much lower than I had ever had really in my entire life. I wasn't failing, but you had to take on a certain status quo or be in a certain GPA range or grade range to stay in this advanced learning program. And I was not meeting those marks in a couple of different subjects, I believe math and English. And so I mentioned the English tutor that I had, but I never really got anything for math. And what ended up happening in math is that I would find very creative ways to cheat in the fifth grade. I don't think I've ever really told anybody this, and nobody really knows this, but to even like get a remote semblance of a grade, I had to cheat many different times in the fifth grade on math tests, whether that was somebody looking at somebody else's stuff or writing it somewhere or putting it somewhere where I could see it. I feel like I found creative ways. My teacher called me out one time about it, but I only got called out the one time and I didn't really learn my lesson, to be honest with you. And so I continued to do it. However, later on in the year, there are these things called parent-teacher conferences that I believe most people know about, where the parents have to meet with the teachers and talk to them and be like, this is what your student's doing, blah, blah, blah. And my fifth grade teacher was great and had a conversation with my parents about how I was doing. And she felt like I needed to be taken out of the advanced learning program because I just was not keeping up with the other students and really learning the material at the same rate as everybody else. So while I stayed at the same school for sixth grade, I was no longer in the advanced learning program. So that means I learned sixth grade stuff twice. So I got a full year in fifth grade to learn everything that people normally learn in sixth grade. And then because I got taken out of the program at the same school though, and placed in the normal sixth grade class, everything that I learned the year before, I just got to do another year of. And wouldn't you know it, I did just fine in the class. It was totally chill. I had a really great sixth grade teacher as well, probably one of my favorite teachers of all time, and pretty much got through it. Again, didn't go crazy. I was never like, top of the class or anything like that because I didn't study and I didn't put that much effort in. I just kind of just felt like whatever I had in my head and knew was all I needed, and I didn't need to do anything after school for my studies. Middle school comes along, and in middle school I had two different schools, and this one isn't because of any learning programs or anything like that. It's actually because I moved and was just in a different area and was not able to go to the same middle school. So 7th and 8th grade I went to a public school that was pretty close to my house, and I went to that one just because I could walk there, so there was no need for me to be transported to and from like I had been in elementary school. And then my family ended up moving in my 8th grade summer to a different neighborhood, and I had to go to a completely different school again in 9th grade. My 9th grade school was just another normal public school, and so was my high school, and I only had one high school. So after that first few years of elementary school, being in this advanced learning program in a private school and a public school and doing really well, there's just the 4th grade year happened, and then I just really struggled 5th grade, and that part of me just kind of fizzled out of my life. But in middle school and high school, the grades kind of, like I said, were just average, or maybe a little bit above average. I'm not sure exactly what the national GPA average is, but I floated around, out of a 4.0, I floated around a 3.4 to a 3.7, depending on the semester. I know for a fact I never got below a 3.0 any semester, and I've never failed a class before. This also goes for university. I never failed a class. I did have to retake classes because you had to get a certain letter grade in them, but I never got an F. And then in university, if you don't know, I studied design for my first few years of college, and I really wanted to get in the design program at the University of Utah, where I went to school. And many people know I really, really tried, and I put in a lot of time to my design portfolio and getting into the design school at the University of Utah. However, I was not selected to join the program when application time came around and studying it for a couple of years. And so I had to switch, and that's kind of when I found out about the JET program coming to Japan, and I found out about it at a general ed linguistics class that I was taking. I really liked the gen ed linguistics, but I didn't really know what kind of linguistics would lead me in, and figuring out I could go to Japan, I figured I'll just get a linguistics degree It's an interesting enough subject. I like taking it. I like learning about it. And so I shifted from design to a linguistics degree and graduated with a linguistics degree after I think 7 years in college. So I technically have a bachelor's in linguistics with a minor in design. The years that I went in design didn't completely go to waste. Like, technically, I do have a minor because of all the classes that I took, but that is my official pedigree when it comes to university slash college. And the reason that college and university took me so long is because I was also working full time and paying off my tuition with what I was getting at my job. So after those years in college and working the entire time as well, and just kind of, it depended on how much money I had and how many classes I was able to take, and finally finished it after those 7 years, and I was able to graduate with zero debt. That's probably one of my biggest achievements, I think, being able to go through the college system, especially in the years that I went with college and how expensive it was getting, graduating with zero debt and being able to have a degree and have work experience really, I think, makes me super different than a lot of people that kind of went through the system. I'm sure there are very similar people as well, but I haven't really met a lot of people that have been able to do that, and it's something that I'm very proud of that I was able to do. The last thing that I want to mention when it comes to school and university is friends. I'm going to make a separate video on this topic specifically, but I briefly want to mention here that moving from school to school as a kid and as a teenager was hard. Like, thinking on media portrayal and people's stories, and when they have to go to this new place, it's very hard for them to find a group of people when they had a group of people. But luckily for me, moving has never, in any case, even in my adult life after school and after college, here in Japan even, finding friends has never been difficult for me, even when I was a kid. I wouldn't say, again, I was the most popular kid. I definitely had my share of bullies or people that were not big fans of me, but in essence and in spirit and in general, I always was able to find people to connect with and be friends with in every single stage. In the private school, in the public school, in the advanced program, out of it, in the middle schools that I went to, and in high school. I would say less so during university. I didn't think I made as many friends. I probably have much more acquaintances that I made in my university time, and that's just because I didn't live on campus and I was never a full-time student, so it was hard for me to really connect with a lot of people. But there are still people from my college and university days that I do still talk to or see on social media, especially people that were in the design program, the design side of things. We spent so many hours working on things together, and I love seeing the things that they're working on. And I don't know if any of them are watching, but it's incredible to see what you guys are doing. I think that's it for my schooling career. If you think that I missed anything, please leave it in a comment down below and I'll try to cover it in another video. That's been it for this week, guys. Thanks so much for tuning into the series. I'm turning 30. My name is Mitch, and I will see you guys again next week. Peace.